rocking with
Ghetto Report.
Ghetto Report.
Ghetto Report.
Ghetto Report.
Ghetto Report podcast.
So you was in prison with Meech.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things being said about him now. And did you hear anything like that when you was in prison with him?
No, because he wasn't on that type of time.
Yeah.
Now, I would say this.
And what you think about it?
Meech is a likable guy.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's possible that the female, whoever she is, try to help him out. Like, you got a lot of time, you're a good person, good hard person, you show love, so you have people.
Without him knowing.
Right.
Right.
Because
that's how I feel. But go ahead.
Yeah, because you got people that will go do a third party buy and your name won't show up in the picture. You won't have nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go there, I want to help him out. Just give him the credit. Don't worry about it. Right, and you get your time cut. Meech used to hang out with a lot of good, thorough dudes, so that was never the conversation. Yeah. So when I see that stuff, I don't pay no attention because you never know what's going on, what it is, and I'm not gonna badmouth him.
Right.
Because he a good dude. Me and him been around, and I'm biased towards that situation. So show favoritism.
You're biased, even though they had a rumor. Y'all got.
Yeah,
I know
ain't
it
trying
ain't
to hear
true,
that.
but I know it ain't true. They had. I'm saying they had a rumor about y'all getting into it.
Oh yeah, I liked that one. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing about social media then, right?
Yeah.
So I'm getting text messages, people hit me up, you all right? I'm like, what's going on? Oh, man, they say, you got beat up, Big Meech beat you up, and your face all bruised, you had to go to the hospital. I say, what? So I called Slim, and he was like, when they got to Slim and my mother, I said, this big. So I called him, I said, hey, man, it's on the internet. I say, well, what they told me, I said, what the people saying? He said, man, it's 1,000 thumbs up that Big Meech beat you up, and it's 900 thumbs down. I said, oh, he winning. You know what I'm saying? So, but it was a little dude out the Atlanta clickbait. Yeah. The little clown did put that thing out, and he said,
he was locked up with him?
No, I didn't know him or nothing.
Yeah.
But I guess he felt, like I say, I'm in prison, so I don't know about this internet stuff, how to do the clickbait and how you get people to come to your channel to whatever.
Yeah. So, that situation, Bleu did a safety valve. Now, if you're in the feds, what they consider that to be?
Right. Let me tell you something, bro. I know
this because I listen to I have people that have been in and out of feds,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying, cousins and all that. But go ahead.
I listen to him talk and Wack 100 back in his plate. But the thing is this: when you go and be debrief, when you go sit down with them people, a safety valve, you got to tell them everything what happened. You got to admit your wrongdoing, everything within the scope. You got to admit to that stuff. So I just don't get into it because I got my own situation.
Right.
But I be like, when you trying to bring Big Meech down, I'm like, come on, man. I know how to go and dig and show the people that I'm like, that ain't my business.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I be like, I understand it because, they attacked him first.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I remember they told you, BMF, you can't claim that no more, we catch you. So he's only retaliate.
Yeah.
So I get this, but I'm like,
he defending his honor. He like,
right,
fuck that.
you know what I'm saying? He, so he bringing forward his proof. Look, well, y'all check this out.
Yeah.
He getting a little buzz, but I just stay away from it. You know what I'm saying? I just stay about it.
Yeah, so from my understanding, safety valve, you sit down with them, you tell them everything, but they can't use it, what you say against the people. But they can secretly use it. Like, so for instance, if you tell them, oh, Terrence did this, blah, 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 tell them they can't use his testimony against Terrence. You know what I'm saying?
That's not correct.
But they know where to look.
No, they're going to use that. When you being debriefed on that.
I thought a safety valve, they can't use the information against.
No, they're going to, man, one thing. Let me show you something. You got these agents.
Because I asked an attorney this too. Yeah. He said it's snitching, but they can't personally use it, but they can use it. You know what I'm saying? They use it. They go find the information because now they know where to look.
See, the owner saying, the safety valve is saying, I'm protecting you because you come in here telling us this. But they got it.
Yeah.
They got you debrief. I didn't see where people go be debrief and a proffer hearing.
Yeah.
And then they want to back up out of it and say, okay, well, everything you told us here, we're going to use it against you.
Yeah. Because you can't back up once you go in that room.
True, but they're going to still use against you. So now the thing is this here, when you go to do your safety valve, you tell them everything. So now you let them know, yeah, my co-defendant did this, yeah, my co-defendant did. All right, let me ask you this. If they're saying they can't use none of this stuff against you, right, in the safety valve, so if my co-defendant telling people, yeah, he murdered such and such, I seen him murder such and such, you don't think they're going to use that? They're going to ignore that I did that murder?
they're gonna go find corroborating evidence because now they know where to look.
Right.
But they can't use that you said it.
They're
They're gonna go find corroborating evidence that this happened. You know what I'm saying? You put it on this person, so they got the picture, they got the lineup. They say, "Yo, did you see this person?"
No, listen, what I'm saying. No. I'm saying this here. Say I'm going for my safety valve.
Yeah.
And I say, yeah, I saw this microphone kill. I saw the microphone kill.
All right, so yes, it's recording. So basically, I'm gonna go through.
Me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to testify.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? So they play all kind of game. They make the law and break the law, bro.
So there's been a lot of talk about a safety valve. You know, something they have in the federal system. So currently we got an attorney on the phone who may be more well versed in it than we are. He's gonna remain anonymous. We're gonna protect his identity, but instead of having like opinions about it, we got an attorney to break it down for us. So give us a brief background of yourself without getting too specific, and how long you've been practicing law. We don't need an exact number and stuff like that.
Sure. So I've been engaged in the practice of law. I primarily focus on criminal litigation. I used to be a prosecutor at the state level for a few years, and then I went into private practice, and I've been doing criminal defense now. Definitely over 25 years, and I do a fair amount of federal criminal litigation as well.
Okay, so you've been doing the federal system for a little while now. So mainly we want to know about the safety valve. So break down the safety valve and how it works.
Sure. So the safety valve, I think, originated around 1984 with the Federal Sentencing Reform Act. And it has a very limited application. It only really assists people that have a minimal record, that kind of get themselves caught up in some sort of drug trafficking conspiracy, usually with these, they call DTOs, drug trafficking organizations. Usually these DTOs can range in, dozens of people. And, usually they'll use people like mules, people who are very low level on the ladder, to work their business. And when these people get caught up, sometimes they might have significant weight of narcotics that could be attributed to them. They could be looking at minimum mandatories of 10, maybe even 20 years, and it's kind of daunting if you've never really been involved with the criminal justice system, and then your first time offense, you're looking at double digit type of numbers. And so the safety valve speaks to that, right? It gives these people an opportunity to get out from under these minimum mandatory sentences, and they have to meet a certain specified criteria in order to qualify for the safety valve. But if they do qualify, they can have their sentences significantly reduced.
So it's a downward departure.
Yeah, it technically, with the sentencing guidelines, it's like an algorithm, right? So it's a grid, and a lot of people that have some experience with the federal system, or anybody that's been involved with the federal system is going to know about it. But on your guidelines, if you qualify for the safety valve, you get a 2-point reduction. So, and I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say you're looking at a 5-year minimum mandatory, but let's say on the guidelines you're only at 36 months. The judge, by law, has to give you the 5 years. He can't give you the 36 months because you're looking at a minimum mandatory. But if you're safety valve eligible, he could give you those 36 months. Actually, 36 months minus 2 additional points, because of that's what the statute calls for. When you qualify for the safety valve, you get a 2-point reduction. So I don't know what that would mean, in a specific sense, but in a general sense, you would definitely get under the minimum mandatory, and you might even get a little bit lower than what your guideline original range is.
So what's the criteria to qualify for this thing? So what
Sure.
is the exact criteria?
Yep. So I think there's 5 in number, and It's pretty basic. I mean, you got to have a limited criminal history. There's something under the guidelines called a criminal history category. And depending on how many times you've convicted in the past, you could be a category 1, that's the lowest, all the way up to like a category 6, which is the highest. So in order to qualify for the safety valve, you have to have a limited criminal history. The statute says no more than 4 points. And so that's one criteria. So if your record's upside down, you just don't qualify. Or if you've done state time before, things of that, serious felonies, you're not going to qualify. The offense that you have to be getting sentenced on can't involve any sort of guns or any sort of violence or any sort of serious injury, any sort of assaultive conduct. If your offense involves that, you don't qualify. And usually drug offenses, unless there's overdoses, they don't, obviously they don't have a violent kind of connection. So you would qualify, and they're typically drug offenses. So if you're trying to get a safety valve, you're probably looking at minimum mandatory for a drug offense. So if it's like a RICO violent gang type of situation, you're not going to qualify for the safety valve. You also can't be at the higher echelon of the DTO. So you can't be an organizer or leader. You have to be on the lower level of the, of the range, so to speak. And last but not least, you have to provide some cooperation with law enforcement. And what that means is, there's a lot of different ways you can interpret this. But what that means is that you have to accept responsibility for your role in the offense. And so you have to go in before sentencing, sit down with the government, and speak with them about your conduct. But at the same time, the likelihood is if you're involved in a DTO, not only are you going to speak about your conduct, you're probably going to have to end up speaking about, your co-conspirators. Who'd you deal with in the conspiracy? What did that person do? What did that person have you do? And so in some sense, you are providing cooperation, not only with respect to your own conduct, but with your conduct of others as it relates to the conspiracy.
Okay, so can you go in this room and not give information on your co-conspirators and still get the safety?
If you start balking and you start saying, I'm only here to talk about me, that's not going to work. Not only do you have to be truthful in these sessions, but you have to be forthcoming. Now, mind you, there's limits, right? Meaning, you can go in there and they can't ask you about some situation that's totally unrelated to the actual crime that you're convicted of, right? I mean, it's got to be related to conspiracy. So they can't say, give us information on Joe Blow out in California when, as it pertains to his activities, if he's not part of this conspiracy. So there is some limits, but, in a nutshell, yes. I mean, you cannot refuse to provide information that you are aware of as it relates to your crime, and that would include your co-conspirators.
So, let me take a step back for a second. How does this safety valve come about? Does the DA come to you as the client's lawyer,
No.
or does the client come to you, or you go to the client? Like, how does this, explain to me how this happens?
Anytime, I pick up a criminal case, my ultimate goal is to, reduce any exposure that he has. One, I make an assessment whether or not he can win on the merits of the case. And, the government can't prove it or he's actually innocent. But if I feel as if the case is not viable from a trial perspective and we have to enter in some sort of plea, I'm the one that initially makes the determination whether or not a client's safety valve eligible. Now, mind you, clients is, just as, knowledgeable sometimes about these things. They're in jail. They talk to other people. So they're exposed to these type of concepts as well. I mean, it's not hard to know about the safety valve. If you're in jail, people talk about it. So, but generally speaking, I make the determination. I approach the client if he is safety valve eligible, and I explain to the client what it would mean. And frankly, the most important aspect of it is the cooperation part, because anybody's interested in becoming safety valve eligible because they have a minimal record in their cases that involve any sort of violence, or they're not an organizer or a leader, right? So who wouldn't be desirous of availing themselves of the safety valve? But then comes that kind of defining moment where they're like, well, you also, in addition to all of that other criteria, you got to sit down with them. Some do, some don't. Depends on the person that you're talking to.
Okay, so is it ever a situation where they might not fully understand what's like the ramifications of everything, like until they get in the room and they be like, "Whoa, I didn't sign up for this."
Well, that's where my job comes in, because I have to make sure they are aware, right? You can't just say, "Hey, trying to get through reduced sentence. Let's just go sit down and chat with the prosecutor for a minute and see what comes of it." They're not gonna be in there with like deer in the middle of the night in the headlights. Yeah. So no, I mean, my job is to make sure that they become very much aware.
So you make it clear to them.
You got to, right? I mean, how unfair would that be? If my client's in there and I'm supposedly holding his hand and he doesn't have the slightest idea what the heck's going on. So yeah, no, any client of mine would surely know what they are getting themselves into by sitting down with them. That's for sure.
So after they do this safety valve, this is in their paperwork. Yeah.
So it would definitely be in their PSR, and the PSR stands for the pre-sentence report. And this is kind of a little bit outside of my pay grade as far as prison politics and how it works in there, but I can state that there have been instances where, my clients are demanding, their PSR, their sentencing transcripts, because apparently once they arrive in jail, they have to demonstrate that they either, they didn't provide substantial assistance or they didn't do a safety valve, because to my understanding, I don't have obviously any first-hand knowledge of this, is that it could be a rough ride for them if their paperwork is not in order.
Okay,
but the PSR, the pre-sentence report, which is the outline of the pre-sentence investigation, would indicate if you've got the safety valve.
And what do they consider people who got the safety valve, in your honest opinion?
I'm sorry, one more time, please.
In the federal system, what do they consider inmates that have gotten the safety valve?
Well, there's a big stack, right? But generally speaking, it's cooperation. The word cooperation is synonymous with snitching. So, there's a general consensus that it is. But, just to be fair, the information that clients provide during a safety valve proffer, at least, and I'm only speaking from personal experience, I've yet to see any information used by the government to charge somebody or even investigate somebody. Because you got to understand, these are very closed or finite conspiracies, right? So if 20 people get charged, the only thing that could come out of that, of a conspiracy for drugs, is to find out, let's say the source of supply is in Mexico or, Colombia. Perhaps a safety valve proffer could produce information as to information that the government didn't know. Let's say there's 20 people in the conspiracy, and the 21st person is that person in Colombia, the unidentified co-conspirator. The people that do safety valves are mules. So they're not going to know, the intricacies of the higher up in this DTO or drug trafficking organization.
Okay, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was just to finish the thought. I mean, so to be fair to the safety valve process, if a client, if one that's eligible for the safety valve is giving information, chances are the government knows all of the information that the client is providing, and they're just confirming that he's being truthful, but that these people usually don't have information that is of any true benefit to the government, because they usually have a pretty good understanding of the investigation and the conspiracy beforehand.
Okay, so these people that's asking for your clients that's asking for the PSR, they did not give a safety valve.
No, I mean, what do you mean access to the PSR?
Okay, so for instance, like if your clients that you had and they currently incarcerated and they call you and say, I need my PSR, they didn't do a safety valve.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if a person's asking for their PSR, there's a distinct likelihood that they probably didn't do the safety valve.
And why is that?
Because they don't want their name on paper demonstrating that to be the case. So if they're asking for
that they cooperated in the safety valve.
Yeah, I mean, right. So that they actually got a reduced sentence because they safety valve, which means that they sat down with the government.
Okay. So you're saying you have yet to see some of these things become like, they use it against somebody in a prosecution or something. But say, for instance, they do give a statement on, they do know the information on Mr. 21. Like you said, they got 20 people, they know information on 21 and they give it. Is that them statements going to be used against 21?
So they better come up with some independent evidence if they're going to go after 21, because any good lawyer would obviously fight, any sort of evidence that is going to be attempted to be used against, we just call them 21, that comes from the safety valve.
Okay.
So that's what I mean. To be fair, it's in a very technical sense. Yeah, just in a very raw sense, it's cooperation. I mean, the definition of cooperation, you're providing information to the government where you have the right to remain silent, and you're doing so specifically to get some sort of benefit, which is some sort of reduced sentence. That in and of itself kind of meets the definition. But in practice, there's all different degrees of cooperation, right? Mm-hmm. Where a person can get up on the stand. A person can be a CI, confidential informant. Mm-hmm. That's cooperation. Now, because of that person's action, somebody's house or residence or person or vehicles getting searched, CIs serve as a probable cause to search people's, personal effects. Uh-huh. So that's serious cooperation, right? Because now your words are actually getting somebody into trouble. But then there's, the safety valve, which frankly I don't really see as having the same type of impact. But in a very technical sense, I really don't see how you can look at it any different. It's cooperation.
Okay, so so what I'm getting from the safety valve is basically you go in there, you give the information on everything they already know. But in federal inmates terms, it's still considered snitching, in everybody else's terms as well. But they cannot use more than likely they cannot use the information you provided directly. They got to get corroborated evidence to use it against somebody else. So
you have to have independent evidence, like evidence that could stand on its own.
So
right,
if they go find the independent evidence, they cannot come back and use your statement against that person?
No, because you're not. See, there's two different types of cooperation in the feds, at least by my experience, and one is substantial assistance, and that's when the government represents to the court that you were working for them, right, in some capacity, CI or whatever cooperation you provided, and perhaps even in some instances you agree to testify if need be, where you're actually serving to put somebody, get somebody convicted, right? In this situation, it's really more geared towards helping people who are not on the same level as others, but yet they're exposed to the same amount of time. And there's a fairness aspect of it. And so what the government is really looking for from these people is truthfulness, more so than, intel. Because, and I'm only speaking from personal experience, because typically, my clients that have done the safety valve, they don't know anything, right? There's a lot of conspiracies out there where you'll meet a client and he says, he's in the room with 20 people and he only knows one or two people.
Right.
And there's like 18 other people in the room with him, and he has the slightest idea who these people are.
Right.
Right. But federal conspiracies are broad. It's like a dragnet. They get everybody. So generally speaking, the client, at least the ones that I had that have done the safety valve, they're not going to be of any real assistance to the government. I mean, there's two levels of cooperation, right? There's cooperation, and then there's a cooperation that provides some real assistance.
Mm-hmm.
The safety valve can, in fact, perhaps give the government some assistance, but in my experience, it hasn't been used that way as a tool.
I'm caught up in this fast life. Every morning night I pray. Gotta make it out some way. Put a smile